Well, hello and welcome back to Planet Zoo, where I try to recreate the Antwerp Zoo in the game. Today's episode, I'll build the Okapi habitat, including the Moorish temple and an additional indoors stable building. Okapis are one of my favorite animals because of their interesting history, which is closely tied and related to Belgian history. But first, let's look at the history of the Moorish temple. The Moorish temple is another one of Charles Servet's buildings, the architect who also made the building from last episode. The original building, built in 1871, was much smaller than the current one and originally housed ostriches. In 1895, architect Emile Thielens tore down the building and rebuilt it at the same location, but of course bigger. The Moorish temple is a good example of romantic exotism in zoo architecture. This particular example can also be ascribed to Orientalism, the imitation or depiction of aspects in the Eastern world. In this example, Moorish culture, and in particular the Palace of Alhambra, located in Spain, proved an important source of inspiration for Charles Servet. Romantic exotism allowed architects to use different styles and experiment with different materials. For example, the Moorish temple has these nice tiles on its outside walls, which proved somewhat of a challenge to recreate in Planet Zoo. As you can see on screen right now, I used these Indian flower assets in combination with the Arctic fabric as a background, and that gave me this nice little pattern. I adjusted the colors, and yeah, it basically allowed me to recreate the mosaic on the walls pretty accurately. Basically what I was doing here was building one piece of the wall so I could copy that 7 times and have the complete front of the building done in one go. While I'm doing that, let's talk a bit about the discovery and history of okapis. Okapis are one of those animals that were unknown to Western science until relatively recent history. I say Western science because of course the people native to the natural habitat of the okapi had known them for much longer. Because okapis live deep inside of the Congolese jungle, their discovery by the West is closely tied to the history of colonialism in Africa. At the Berlin Conference of 1885, European powers agreed upon a set of rules of engagement regarding the colonization of Africa. As part of their agreement, Leopold II, then King of Belgium, was granted personal ownership of a large piece of Africa, the Congo Free State. In years that followed, the scramble for Africa, a colonial race to get as much territory and colonies in Africa as possible, ensued. During the scramble, European explorers went deeper and deeper into the heartland of Africa, and as a result they discovered many new plants and animals. Of course, this exploration was driven by some fascination for exotic lands and creatures, but it was also driven by the colonial ventures, such as looking for suitable land for plantations, looking for natural resources, looking for labor forces, and so on and so on. The fascination for everything exotic expressed itself in literature and inspired adventurers to look for mysterious creatures described in legends and myths. Thinly peopled and little cultivated, a region enclosed between 60 degrees of latitude, bisected by the equator, and in its widest part between as many of longitude, of which perhaps more than 3/4 are only now just beginning to be penetrated by the straggling foot of the European explorer and missionary. What may we not expect of the vast, the uncouth, the terrible, among the creatures which lurk as yet unsuspected in the teeming wilds of Central Africa? This quote from Philip Goss's The Romance of Natural History from 1861 perfectly describes the European image of Central Africa as this vast, unexplored region full of mythical creatures. Even to this day, there are still elements of this romantic exotism present. Take for example the legend of the Mokele Mbembe, a cryptid dinosaur which is said to still roam the Congo basin. So too, the okapi remained largely a mysterious cryptid until its eventual discovery. One of the earliest mentions of an okapi-like creature roaming the jungles of the African interior can be attributed to Russian explorer Wilhelm Juncker. Juncker traveled through Africa from 1882 to 1886 and described receiving a piece of skin from natives who said it belonged to an animal called the makapi. At that time, Juncker thought they were talking about some sort of dwarf musk deer, but the eerily similar sounding name suggests it may in fact have been an okapi. Even the most famous explorers, such as Henry Morton Stanley, dabbled in looking for the intriguing animal. In 1890, Stanley briefly described a donkey-like animal in his book In Darkest Africa. The Wambuti knew a donkey and called it Ati. They say that they sometimes catch them in pits. What they can find to eat is a wonder. They eat leaves. On first glance this could have been any animal, but this brief description of a donkey-like animal inspired other adventurers to find the true identity of the Ati. One of those adventurers was Harry Johnston, who attributed his interest in the unicorn of the African jungle to the previously mentioned Philip Goss and talked about the animal with Stanley before going on his own quest to discover the mysterious animal. In 1900, when several pygmies from the Ituri forest were abducted by a German who wanted to put them on display in a human zoo at the Paris World's Fair, the colonial government of the Congo Free State hired Johnston to return the pygmies to their home. When Johnston succeeded, the natives told him that there was a large animal in the forest which looked like a donkey with stripes. They called it the Okapi. During Johnston's quest to return the pygmies to their home, he stopped at a military post commanded by the Belgian lieutenant Murat. During his stay at the camp, the lieutenant told Johnston about some of his soldiers from the Bambuba tribe who had made bandoliers from an animal skin. They called the animal Okapi. Johnston was given 2 of these bandoliers, which he sent back to Europe for identification. In Europe, Dr. Sclater from the Zoological Society of London received the Okapi bandoliers and proceeded to inspect them under a microscope. The ball got rolling and a true debate broke out about the origin of the bandoliers in Europe. Meanwhile, back in Africa, Johnston continued his quest for evidence of the Okapi. In February of 1901, Scandinavian Lieutenant Karl Eriksson, who had inherited Murat's position after the latter passed away, sent Johnston a skin and 2 skulls belonging to Okapis. After sending those to Europe and a couple of meetings by the Zoological Society later, the animal was given a scientific name, Okapia johnstonii, named after Harry Johnston. The mystery was solved and the mysterious unicorn of the jungle identified. But now began the long process of obtaining a live Okapi and successfully putting it on display in zoos all over the world. A true competition erupted to capture a live Okapi, which would prove to be a difficult challenge given the shy nature of the animal. Officers of the Congo Free State's army, the Force Publique, would be involved in the first attempt. Lieutenant Anzelius holds the dubious honor of being the first European to kill an Okapi, but it was Commandant Cillier who was the first European to capture an Okapi in 1903. However, the young animal he had caught soon escaped back into the jungle. So many museums, zoos and collectors wanted to obtain an Okapi that the Belgian government, who took over control of the Congo Free State in 1908 after growing international criticism on King Leopold's brutal robber regime, had to issue a ban on hunting Okapis without the proper permits. Early attempts to capture Okapis and to keep them alive ran into many problems. Not much was known about the animals, including how to properly take care of them, and transporting them from the jungle interior of Congo to the coast where they would be shipped to Europe proved very difficult and cost the lives of countless animals. If an animal survived the trip to the coast harbors, it still had to endure weeks and weeks on a ship, suffering from seasickness and bad conditions, not to speak of the completely different environment and climate that awaited these Okapis on the other side. The intense relations between the port of Antwerp and the Belgian Congo eventually resulted in the success of the Antwerp Zoo to obtain and display a live Okapi in 1919, being the first zoo in the world to do so. The Okapi in question, a female called Buta, would however only survive for 7 weeks. In 1928, the Antwerp Zoo received another female, which survived until 1943, when she unfortunately died of starvation during World War II. In the interwar period, the only shipping station for Okapis was operated by the Belgian Catholic missionary Joseph Hutseboot, who had a special connection to the animals. His efforts made it possible to transport Okapis to Antwerp, London and New York. However, when the Belgian colonial administration wanted to hire Hutseboot in an official manner, the latter declined, responding he had come to the Congo to preach the word of God, not to catch Okapis. Instead, the job was given to American Patrick Putnam. Similar to how the Chinese government today uses pandas as a way of diplomacy, the Belgian government gifted Okapis to friendly governments. For example, the first Okapi in London was given by the Belgian king in 1935 as a gift to the Duke of Windsor. and in 1956 an okapi was gifted to the United States. After the Second World War, transport to Europe became easier and easier as airplanes made it possible to cut down the length of trips from weeks to hours. Zoos could start dreaming about organizing breeding programs. The first European birth occurred once again at the Antwerp Zoo in 1954. However, the male calf did not survive. The honor of having the first okapi to be successfully conceived, born, and mother-reared in captivity went to Paris when a calf named Ebola, yep, you heard it right, Ebola, was born in 1957. Ebola would live for 22 years. The Antwerp Zoo's central position in the breeding program of okapis in Europe is still visible to this day. Phew, that was a lot of history to talk about. I hope you're still here and I didn't bore you away with all this talk about the history and the discovery of the okapi. But while I'm doing this interior here, I thought it was the ideal moment to thank Peter Liter for sending me a lot of pictures from the Antwerp Zoo. It really helped me out building this temple, and it will help me out in future episodes as well. So once again, thank you Peter Liter and the awesome community over on Discord who shares pictures of their recreations in this game and gives feedback. It's really valuable to have such a Discord group where we can discuss these kind of things. Now, while I still have quite a lot of time-lapse to go, I just think right now would be the ideal moment to just give you some music and let you enjoy the rest of the episode. At the end, I'll be doing live commentary inside of the game where we take a look at what are all the things that I built on camera and off camera. So I hope I'll see you there. So now inside the game, to have a look at all the things we built on camera and all the things I completed off camera, because there's quite a lot that I completed off camera. So first we have here this side of the temple, just the historical side, I would say. If we have a look at a picture of the building in real life right now, then you can see how it compares. I took a lot of inspiration from the temple building, which was on the Steam Workshop already, made by the Blue Archway. I will put in a link in the description. Yeah, for example, these leaves hanging down, he did that as well. For example, these flower assets here, he used a different one, but I used this one. So yeah, both of these are sleeping and making really loud noises. But anyways, we can go inside here, and yeah, there's nothing special really here, but it's just the inside. But yeah, I'll put in a picture of a comparison as well. Then we have this side, the more modern side, I would say. And we just saw an Okapi running through the leaves there. So I'll put a picture for comparison up right now. I'm really happy with how this turned out. Yeah, and then we have one more enclosure for the Okapis, and it's this one. Put a picture for comparison in right now. Of course, on the right there should be a building here, but I just, because this is attached to it. Oh, and this is actually not ready yet, as I just saw. I need to put in some kind of open door here or something. But yeah, that's nothing too major. But if we go inside, we can actually go inside here to look at the Okapis when they go inside this building. At the moment they are not inside here, but I took a screenshot when there was one inside here, so I think I'll put that up. Looks like this glass is already being shattered, which is not good. Yeah, I'll also put a picture for comparison how this compares to real life. So overall, I'm really happy with how this turned out. Like all these little areas, like this sitting area over here, where they can look at these guys. Actually, also look at these guys. I think the path here should have been a little bit wider, but it looks like it's not too busy right now. This is all temporary over here, especially this path, because there is actually a building right here, and I will need to build that. I don't know if I'll build that on camera, because it houses an animal that's not in the game, and it's actually not that big of a building. Is this guy gonna fix? Yeah. I'm gonna put in some more mechanics, because a lot of the barriers are being damaged. It's better to have more than enough. Like, oh, this has been repaired apparently, because this had cracks in it. Anyways, I'm not sure yet what I'll do next episode. It will probably be something over here as well, so that we can finish off this area. What's this? Oh, that's bad. Yeah. One thing I read upon, or I read, is a lot of the early Okapis in zoos in Europe died because of parasites, and the parasites of course thrive in these dirty environments, so we need to get a solution for that. But anyways, if you like this, please consider giving this video a like, and consider subscribing to the channel if you want to follow this series and see the entire zoo. In one of the future episodes I'll probably also do a little tour of what we already built. But anyways, see you next time. Bye!